Have you ever wondered what happens when a superhero is pushed to the breaking point? Well, you're in luck. In this dark and exciting Spider-Man story, Peter is driven by tragic events and a difficult personal loss. How much can heroes really take before they snap? What happens when your friendly hero becomes obsessed with revenge? In this video, we'll explore the events that make Spider-Man go total bonkers. Let's get started. The sniper already had MJ within range, but she wasn't the main fish. She was a backup plan to fall back on if the main target, Peter, didn't show up. Oblivious to Mary Jane, she could have been dead just now taking a peek outside the window, hopeful to catch a glimpse of Peter on the porch. Peter was an hour late for dinner, which was nothing like him. The phone rings in the dining room, and Aunt May quickly picks it up. After listening for a few seconds, she hands the phone over to MJ. "Peter wants to talk to you." The relief in her voice and face was visible. She'd been so worried that something terrible had happened. "When will you be home?" she asked. "You're an hour late already." And yes, we changed locations, even made sure to clear the bugs and roaches. She knew Peter had been slightly on edge since his secret identity was revealed. It wasn't like Peter not to say something smart to her little joke, and she immediately sensed something was wrong, or about to be, at least. Hanging from the roof of a building, Peter explained that things were in a very bad state, and she's learned not to downplay anything he said when he used his strong and brisk voice. It always meant serious business. At this point, you might be trying to figure out what was happening. Why did Peter sound like something terribly bad was about to go down? Well, it was only just the final battle of Earth's strongest heroes fighting against each other. Buildings had been toppled. Electric wires were crackling from broken down billboards. This was it. The superhero civil war. It'd been a long time coming, but nobody knew it'd get this bad. Iron Man got in a tricky position when Captain America dodged his blast while knocking into him with his shield. From the side, Spider-Man couldn't believe his eyes. How did we get to this? Watching Captain America and Iron Man fight, Spider-Man wondered if the peace and goals they had so much tried to protect had suddenly gone up in flames. He knew it was too late for negotiations. He would fight until Captain America dropped his shield. And knowing him well, he knew that wouldn't happen unless he were out of the picture. You know, dead. Captain America was one of the most bullheaded people he knew. He wasn't someone to stop halfway on something he believed in, not if he was still breathing. Looking up at the media helicopter hovering above them, Spider-Man thought of the people watching from their televisions. Through it all, he hoped they could see that this wasn't just a fight between heroes, but actually a fight for every single one of them. Did they know? He seriously doubted it, but all that mattered was that Aunt May and MJ understood what he was fighting for. 7 miles away, the Battle of Heroes was being watched in prison. Most of the prisoners were excited to see the heroes killing each other. What's better than doing your dirty work? Getting other heroes to do it for you. Most of the heroes were the reason they were behind bars, and none of them blamed the city's heroes for the misfortune more than the Kingpin. The Kingpin had a personal vendetta against one of the heroes, and even if he was killed in the battle, he still smiled at the thought of killing his loved ones. The voice of his hitman brought him out of his fantasy thinking. "Boss, I don't think we'll need to pull the trigger judging from how the fight is going." "No!" his voice thundered. "If he survives, I want you ready to end him when he gets home. If he doesn't, we allow his loved ones to visit him in the afterlife." "Kingpin! Kingpin!" The Kingpin walked to the inmate who was pointing at the screen. Captain America had decided to end the fight by turning himself in. He was on the verge of winning. Why would he do that? Kingpin relaxed his nerves, remembering that there was always a victor and vanquished in every war, and he was sure to make use of this in his best interest. People were beginning to trickle into the streets to inspect the damage. To what end, they wondered. Lives had been lost, relationships too, several careers definitely up in flames, plus wounds that will probably never really heal. Heroes were missing too, which was expected. Some might have been buried in the rubble. Taking a quick look around the surviving heroes, you'll easily find that Cold Blood, Triathlon, and our favorite web slinger were missing from the aftermath. MJ couldn't believe it. She needed air. This couldn't be real. "It'll be fine," Aunt May said. "He'll be back in no time. He has to." Walking to the porch to get some air, MJ steadied her breathing and looked to the sky. It was a beautiful full moon, a stark contrast to the madness that had just taken place in the streets of New York. Looking to the sky, she prayed for Peter's safety. The White House was in disarray. The president was meeting with trusted advisors to create a speech that must go out to the people after the madness they've all witnessed. Senate members and House of Reps believed that the different sides should make peace for the country's and its people's sake. While this seemed like a splendid choice, it'll be a hard pill for the families who had lost someone to swallow. It was well past midnight, and the hitman had drifted off to sleep. Aunt May was trying to convince MJ to get some sleep. "He'll wake you when he's back." Speak of the devil. MJ sights Peter on the porch and runs to him. She was instantly relieved. Through the excitement, the gunman had woken up, and he was ready, with eyes like hawks. "How are you?" MJ asked Peter. He tried reassuring her that everything was fine, but immediately his spidey senses went off. He instantly knew something was wrong. Peter pushed MJ out of harm's way as the bullet fired past them. "Are you all right?" he asked. Before she could reply, Peter heard painful gasps behind him. The color suddenly drained from his face as the realization struck him. "Aunt May!" he screamed. He rushed to her side and saw that the front of her blouse had been stained red. She clung to his shirt as 2 more shots fired through the window, narrowly missing them. "No more!" he screamed. "No more!" Peter was filled with anger. An attack on his home was crossing the line. He ran through the door and lifted a truck parked to the curb, flinging it in the hitman's direction. The hitman had never known fear like this. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? Spider-Man's eyes were red-shot, and at that moment, he knew he'd go to the full length to get revenge. The truck hurled toward the hitman at superhuman strength, destroying the gun. Inside the house, MJ was frantically trying to get through to 911. Peter rushed into the house, knowing it'll be a futile attempt. She'll be dead before they get here. Peter quickly carried Aunt May and sped out of the window, leaping from building to building. As he glided through buildings with tear-stricken face, Aunt May whispered his name. "Shh, you'll be fine," he said. "People will know," she replied, apologizing incoherently for things in the past. Peter cries out her name just before she passes out. He breaks through a glass window and drops Aunt May on the hospital bed. He leaves through the window but sticks to the wall with a concentric web. Downstairs, people hear the loud crash and rush up. The nurses and trauma team respond quickly. "She's lost too much blood," the nurse said as she frantically tried to stop the bleeding. Kingpin is reading the next morning when he sees the guard approaching him. Good news, I hope. The guard said that the first gift basket was not delivered, but one of the other 2 was delivered. The Kingpin closed his eyes, savoring the news. Although it wasn't how he wanted it to play out, it was still a win. "Do you know the Euripides?" the Kingpin asked the guard. "Which cell?" The Kingpin smiled. This fool was clearly not one of the smart ones. "Whom the gods will destroy, they first drive mad." This was one of his quotes and a personal favorite of the Kingpin. There was this excitement that came with toying with your enemies before destroying them. Seeing that the guard didn't understand what he was talking about, the Kingpin sent the guard on his way, thanking him for passing the information. Peter found MJ in the city. He told her Aunt May was stable, but nothing was certain. He blamed himself for everything. He told her the name of the hospital and told her to use Aunt May's maiden name to prevent people from making the connection between them. Since he wouldn't be able to sit beside his aunt's bed in the hospital or hold her hands as she had done for him, someone was going to pay, and Peter was going to find him. Spider-Man returns to the crime scene. A cop tries to stop him, but he blasts him with a web to the wall. With a determined look, Spider-Man climbed the stairs and surveyed the roof like a detective on a mission. Suddenly, his spider instincts kicked in, and he noticed something on the ground. It was a lens, probably left behind by the sniper. The lens had an inscription, and this was his first lead. Rushing down the stairs, he didn't even bother looking at the stuck cop. He had other things to do. In New York, a notorious gang known as the Untouchables struck fear into everyone, even the police. Spider-Man, fueled by determination, targeted the gun runners for the gang. He stormed into the warehouse with unwavering focus, swiftly ticking through enemies like a grocery list. Demanding answers, Spider-Man confronted his primary target. The criminal claimed ignorance, but a painful lesson convinced him otherwise. The frightened criminal eventually spilled the beans, leading Spider-Man closer to the truth. Meanwhile, MJ faced a sad moment at the hospital. Aunt May's critical condition left her hanging by a thread. The doctor delivered the heartbreaking news of her coma and slim chances of recovery. Arriving at strategically placed gargoyles, Spider-Man pulls out a significant item, a cloth with a notorious reputation. Once retired, it now held purpose. Determined, he donned the cloth, ready to exact revenge on Aunt May's shooter and serve justice alongside it. This time, Spider-Man wouldn't hold back. He vowed to unleash his full power and dismantle the Untouchables. those high-level criminals who seemed untouchable. With unyielding resolve, he was about to show them the relentless fury of the Spider-Man they had never seen before. Will Spider-Man's next action be justified? That's the question on everyone's mind. We've come to the end of the video, and if you enjoyed it, do well to click on the like and subscribe buttons. See you in the next one.